The women who cooked through the Great Depression did not know the word anti-inflammatory. They just knew which broth stopped a fever faster, which roots cleared a chest infection, which teas calmed a swollen joint after a week of hard labor in the cold. And the thing that makes those recipes remarkable is not that they worked despite being simple. It is that they worked because of it. Most modern supplements trying to replicate those effects are extracting single compounds from the same plants these women used whole. The extract costs $40. The plant costs nothing. Today, we are going through 25 of those forgotten recipes, what they were made from, what the actual mechanism is that makes them work, and why almost none of them survived into the modern kitchen. The first one almost no one talks about starts with a bone you are about to throw away. Bone broth cooked for over 12 hours does something that a 2-hour version cannot. The collagen matrix inside the bone breaks down into gelatin only after extended heat. And that gelatin contains glycine, an amino acid your body uses to regulate the inflammatory response. Think of glycine as a volume knob on the immune system's alarm signal. When glycine levels are low, that alarm stays loud even after the threat is gone. Depression-era women were not trying to lower inflammation on purpose. They were stretching meat as far as it would go. The 12-hour simmer was a poverty solution that turned out to be a therapeutic one. A study published in 2015 in the journal Glycine confirmed its role in dampening the production of cytokines, the exact signaling proteins that drive systemic inflammation. The depression women called it pot liquor. Nutritional science eventually called it right. But bone broth is just the beginning of a pattern you are going to see repeat across all 25 recipes. The parts of the plant or animal considered waste then contained compounds that modern extraction science now considers valuable. Apple cider vinegar tonic was drunk every morning by women who could not afford medicine. They called it the morning bitters. 2 tablespoons in water before eating anything. The mechanism they did not have language for was this. Acetic acid slows the rate at which the stomach empties, which flattens the spike in blood sugar that follows a meal. Think of it like a gate at the bottom of a funnel. The food still goes through, but slower, which means glucose enters the bloodstream at a pace your insulin response can actually handle without flooding. A 2004 study in diabetes care found that taking acetic acid before a starchy meal reduced post-meal glucose spikes by nearly 30% in insulin-resistant participants. The woman who took her morning bitters in 1932 was managing her metabolic function with a 30-cent bottle of vinegar. There is one recipe later in this list that did something even more specific, something that only works if the preparation method is exactly right. Most people who have tried to replicate it got it wrong for one reason. Pine needle tea sounds like foraging survivalism. It was actually a targeted vitamin C delivery mechanism during winters when no citrus was available. Fresh green pine needles, specifically from white pine, never from yew, which is toxic, are steeped in water that has been boiled and then cooled slightly, not actively boiling, because vitamin C degrades above 70 degrees Celsius. That is the preparation detail that matters. Boiling water destroys the compound you are trying to extract. Women who knew this used water that had stopped bubbling, let the needles steep for 10 minutes, and drank it with honey. The result was a tea with more vitamin C per cup than an orange. During the Depression winters, this was the difference between healthy gums and scurvy. The cooling step is not optional. It is the entire mechanism. Willow bark tea was the original aspirin. The compound inside willow bark is salicin, which the body converts into salicylic acid, the same active molecule in the pharmaceutical tablet. Just arriving through a slower, gentler pathway because the plant matrix slows its absorption. Think of the bark as a slow-release capsule the tree already built. Women who made this for headaches, joint pain, and fever were not doing folk medicine. They were doing what Bayer later industrialized, without the synthetic processing step. The difference matters. Synthetic aspirin irritates the gastric lining because there is no plant buffer. The bark preparation was less aggressive on the stomach because the salicin arrives embedded in fiber that cushions the transition. Now here is the one that surprises almost everyone because it looks too simple to be doing anything real. Oat straw tea, not oatmeal, the straw from the top of the oat plant before the grain forms, contains avenanthramides, a class of polyphenols that are specific to oats and act as calcium channel modulators in smooth muscle tissue. What that means in plain language, they relax blood vessel walls. Depression women made this for nervous exhaustion, for women who could not sleep, for the kind of wired tired that comes from too much cortisol with nowhere to go. They did not know cortisol. They knew the feeling. And the plant was addressing the mechanism underneath the feeling. The blood vessels constricted by the chronic stress response slowly opening again, the way a fist unclenches after a long time held tight. Elderberry syrup made during the Depression was not the pasteurized supermarket version sold today. It was raw elderberries cooked down with raw honey and ginger, which matters because the combination creates a synergistic compound effect. The elderberry contains anthocyanins that block viral replication at the cell entry stage. They coat the proteins viruses use to penetrate a cell wall so the virus cannot dock. Think of it as changing the lock so the key no longer fits. The raw honey adds hydrogen peroxide at a concentration too low to damage tissue, but sufficient to create an inhospitable environment for bacterial secondary infections. The ginger adds gingerols, which reduce the prostaglandin production driving fever and body aches. Separately, each ingredient is useful. Together, they address 3 different stages of a winter illness at once. The recipe coming up in this list that almost no one has heard of was used specifically for what depression women called the change, what we now call perimenopause and menopause, and the plant involved grows in almost every ditch in North America. Red clover blossom infusion, not tea, infusion, which means a full ounce of dried blossoms in a quart jar, covered with boiling water and left to steep for 4 to 8 hours. The concentration is 10 to 20 times stronger than a cup of tea, and that concentration is the entire point. Red clover contains isoflavones, specifically formononetine and biochanin A, which are phytoestrogenic compounds that bind weakly to estrogen receptors in the same way a key that almost fits can still turn a lock partially. For a woman in perimenopause whose estrogen is dropping sharply, this partial binding does not replace estrogen, but it reduces the gap. The hot flashes, the disrupted sleep, the joint aches that come from estrogen-dependent tissues losing their signal. A review published in Maturitas in 2007 found that red clover isoflavone supplementation reduced hot flash frequency by 44% over 12 weeks. Depression women called it the flower tea for the change. They used it because it worked. We stopped using it when pharmaceutical hormone replacement became available and forgot it existed. This is actually close to why I built Strong past the drop. I kept seeing women understand exactly what was happening in their bodies after 50 and still not have a framework that worked with those changes instead of against them. The protocol is built specifically around the estrogen drop and what the body still responds to. Muscle-first meals, the right kind of walking, simple strength work for the legs. It is 8 weeks, mapped out. The link is on screen if you want it. But the red clover recipe points to something deeper about why these 25 all worked. And it is not what most people assume. None of them were trying to supplement around a broken system. They were using the whole plant to speak directly to the system's own language. Mullein leaf tea was the depression cough remedy. The leaves of the mullein plant contain saponins, compounds that thin the viscosity of mucus in the respiratory tract, making it possible to clear. Think of thick mucus like honey stuck in a tube. Saponins change the surface tension, turning it more watery so it moves. Depression, women dried the leaves, made a strong brew, and sometimes added garlic, which adds allicin, an antimicrobial that addresses the bacterial component, while the mullein addresses the mechanical one. This was their antibiotic plus expectorant in 1 cup. Nettle leaf infusion was the iron remedy for women who were exhausted from multiple pregnancies, in rapid succession, and working on not enough food. Nettles contain non-heme iron, the plant form of iron, along with vitamin C, which dramatically increases non-heme iron absorption. The plant packaged the nutrient with its own absorption enhancer. Depression women made this as a strong daily infusion and kept a pot going on the back of the stove all week. They were not following a supplement protocol. They were making the most potent use of what was growing free outside the kitchen door. Plantain leaf poultice, the common weed growing through every sidewalk crack, contains aucubin and allantoin. Aucubin is anti-inflammatory. Allantoin stimulates cell proliferation. It actively accelerates the rate at which damaged skin closes. Depression women chewed a plantain leaf and pressed it onto cuts, stings, and infected wounds. This was not superstition. Allantoin is currently used in pharmaceutical wound healing formulations. The depression woman had it growing in her yard. The next recipe involves a root that almost every traditional culture used independently. And the reason they all arrived at the same plant tells you something important about what it actually does. Dandelion root coffee. Roasted dandelion root was the coffee substitute, but it was also a liver tonic. The root contains inulin, a prebiotic fiber, and tarixacine, a bitter compound that stimulates bile flow from the gallbladder. Think of bile as the dishwashing liquid your digestive system uses to break down fats. When bile flow is sluggish, fats are incompletely broken down. Fat-soluble vitamins are not absorbed, and the liver has to process a heavier load of recirculated compounds. Dandelion root increases bile flow the way you increase water pressure by opening the tap more fully. Depression women who drank this daily were not doing a liver cleanse. They were keeping the fat digestion pipeline moving on a diet that was heavy in lard and salt pork, the cheapest available fats. And they probably had no idea that the bitter taste in their coffee substitute was the exact compound doing the work. Ginger and molasses tonic was the iron and anti-nausea remedy for pregnant women. Blackstrap molasses, the dense, bitter remnant left after sugar is refined, contains more iron per tablespoon than most cuts of red meat. It also contains magnesium, calcium, and B6. Depression women combined it with fresh ginger, not just for taste, but because ginger's gingerols have a direct effect on the gastric emptying rate and the serotonin receptors in the gut that trigger nausea. They were treating morning sickness and anemia simultaneously with 1 drink. The molasses gave iron. The ginger calmed the stomach enough to keep it down. Garlic honey was made in the fall and stored in jars through winter. Raw garlic cloves submerged in raw honey for at least 30 days undergo an enzymatic transformation. The allicin in the garlic becomes more bioavailable, and the honey ferments slightly, becoming mildly probiotic. The resulting compound is both antimicrobial and gut supportive. Think of it as a concentrated immune primer that gets more potent with time, not less. Modern fermentation science has validated what depression women knew through observation. A garlic clove that has sat in honey for a month does something different than a fresh one, and the honey it sat in does something different than it did before. Turmeric and black pepper broth. Turmeric contains curcumin, which has a significant problem. It is poorly absorbed by the human gut in isolation. The bioavailability is low enough that eating turmeric plain accomplishes relatively little. Black pepper contains piperine, a compound that inhibits the enzyme that breaks curcumin down in the gut and the liver before it can reach the bloodstream. The result is a roughly 20-fold increase in curcumin absorption. Depression cooks who added black pepper to turmeric broths were not following a bioavailability protocol. They were following flavor tradition inherited from cultures where both plants grew together. The tradition was correct in a way that took modern pharmacokinetic research decades to explain. Horseradish and honey paste was the sinus and respiratory treatment. Horseradish contains isothiocyanates, the same volatile compounds that make wasabi sharp, which thin sinus mucus, stimulate circulation in nasal passages, and have direct antimicrobial activity against the bacteria that cause secondary sinus infections. The honey extended the preparation's shelf life and softened the heat. Depression women took this at the first sign of a chest cold. It was direct, it was fast, and it worked at the exact anatomical location where the infection was building. Chamomile and valerian sleep blend was the nervous system remedy. Chamomile contains apigenin, which binds to the benzodiazepine receptors in the brain, the same receptor sites that pharmaceutical sleep medications target. With a gentler, non-addictive action. Think of apigenin as a hand gently lowering the volume on the brain's alertness signal, rather than a switch cutting it off completely. Valerian adds valerianic acid, which inhibits the enzyme that breaks down GABA, the main calming neurotransmitter. So GABA stays active longer. Together, they amplify the brain's own braking system rather than overriding it. Depression women who could not sleep through the anxiety of economic collapse were managing their nervous systems with plants that were doing exactly what the pharmacology would later confirm they were doing. Fermented cabbage, not sauerkraut from a can, but raw fermented, was the gut flora maintenance that depression kitchens kept going year-round. The lacto-fermentation process creates Lactobacillus plantarum and related strains at concentrations that rival any pharmaceutical probiotic. For women eating a diet stripped of most fresh vegetables by poverty, fermented cabbage was delivering the only live microbial input their gut was getting. The gut microbiome was getting maintained by a crock in the corner of the kitchen that cost nothing but cabbage and salt. Thyme and honey cough syrup. Thyme contains thymol, a volatile phenol that is the active compound in several pharmaceutical antiseptic mouthwashes and cough preparations, which relaxes the smooth muscle in the bronchial tubes, reducing the spasm component of a cough, while simultaneously acting as an expectorant. The honey provided a thick vehicle that coated the throat on the way down, slowing the cough reflex and providing a substrate the thymol could dissolve into. Depression mothers made this on the stove in 20 minutes. Pharmaceutical preparations of the same compound were being manufactured industrially at the same time, at a price these families could not afford, with thymol as the active ingredient. Onion syrup for coughs was similar in mechanism. Sliced raw onion layered with sugar draws out the juice through osmosis, and that juice contains quercetin, a flavonoid with demonstrated bronchodilatory and anti-inflammatory effects in the airways, plus sulfur compounds with antimicrobial action. The sugar draws out the active compounds and keeps them suspended. This is not a metaphor or an approximation. The mechanism is real, and the depression women who kept a jar of onion syrup on the shelf were right to keep it there. Rosemary oil infusion for memory and circulation was rubbed into the temples and inhaled. Rosemary contains 1,8-cineol, a compound that crosses the blood-brain barrier and inhibits the enzyme acetylcholinesterase, the same enzyme that pharmaceutical Alzheimer's drugs are designed to inhibit. The effect is that acetylcholine, the neurotransmitter responsible for attention, memory encoding, and alertness, stays active longer in the synapse before being broken down. Elderly depression women who rubbed rosemary oil on their temples and smelled it while cooking were, without knowing it, applying a mild cognitive stimulant directly to the tissue where it works. Lavender compress for headaches and anxiety placed cool lavender water cloths on the forehead and back of the neck. Linalool, the primary compound in lavender, modulates the activity of glutamate receptors. the receptor system most associated with the brain's excitatory signaling, reducing the overactivation that underlies both anxiety and tension headaches. Depression women reached for lavender when the weight of everything became physically unbearable. The plant was working on the exact receptor pathway that modern anxiolytic research is now targeting with far more expensive molecules. Milk thistle seed tea was the liver remedy for women exposed to mold in flooded or poorly ventilated Depression-era housing. Silymarin, the active compound, protects hepatocytes, liver cells, by stabilizing their outer membranes against oxidative damage and by increasing the rate of liver cell regeneration. Think of the liver cell membrane like the rubber seal on a jar lid. Silymarin keeps the seal tight so toxins cannot get in. Depression women who made this tea were not thinking about hepatocyte membrane stability. They were trying to stay functional, but the plant was addressing the exact cellular mechanism they needed addressed. The last recipe is the one that makes the pattern undeniable. Nettle, oat straw, and red clover combined into a single daily infusion called the Women's Tonic in Depression kitchens was used for everything from exhaustion to hormonal disruption to brittle bones. The combination was specific to women. The iron in the nettle, the isoflavones in the red clover, the avenanthramides in the oat straw, working together on 3 separate systems: mineral status, hormonal receptor activity, and nervous system regulation, in 1 quart jar. These women were not guessing. They were working from accumulated intergenerational knowledge that had been field-tested across generations of female bodies. The knowledge survived in kitchens because it worked inside the specific biology of the women using it. It did not survive in medical libraries because it was never written there. The gap between what those women knew and what most women are told today about their own bodies is still real. It is closing, slowly, through nutrition research, through functional medicine, through the rediscovery of exactly these plants. But it is still there. You now understand not just what these 25 recipes were, but why they worked, and why the mechanism inside almost all of them is more specific than most people expect from something that came out of poverty and ingenuity. The question is what to do with that understanding, which means building a daily practice that actually matches how your body works at this stage of your life. That is the same gap I built strong past the drop to close, not with plants specifically, but with the same underlying principle. Work with the mechanisms your body already has, not against them. The protocol is 8 weeks, built for women over 50, structured around the specific ways the body changes after the estrogen drop. Muscle-first meals, short strategic walks, simple leg strength routines, smarter food timing. The things that send the right signal when the old signals have changed. It costs something because building it took real time. The link is on screen.